Hey everybody, Nevan again. Here to continue my obscenely long card rankings. Here with the Shadow Strategy cards this time. These are the beefy boys. So using the same rating as before. If you didn't see the previous video, it's a three-tiered rating system. The first 1 out of 5 is the event itself. The second 1 out of 5 is the combat. The third is the flexibility of it being used consistently through multiple stages of the game, is the best way to put it. And just kind of a combination of both the effects. So one card being really good at one thing and sucking at the other is going to hurt that last rating. They can have a minimum of 3 points, a maximum of 15, and that is all, I believe. So let's just jump right on in. Again, this is a rating specifically for Shadow Strategy cards, even though if we were counting all Shadow cards in general, these would probably be towards the top. So we're starting out with New Power is Rising. So there's a lot of muster cards in the strategy deck for both sides. New Power is Rising is easily the most efficient dice-wise. You're getting a grand spanking total of, what is it? It's 8 health? Yeah. Most of the mustering cards Shadow has are all a consistent 6. Saruman gets a little extra. And they go in relatively good spots. They're spread out. It's easy 5. And it makes Orthanc in particular, it's not a very common scenario, but it makes it difficult to conquer if you had it under siege. Just having 2 extra elites pop in is pretty bad. So yeah, easy. The only downside I can think of is if Saruman dies, you can't play it, but Saruman shouldn't be dead. If he is, hopefully it happened at the end of the game. If it happened early game, it's not the card's fault. Or free people just got very lucky. So definitely a 5. Great Host. So Great Host is I'll just be straight up. I'm pretty sure all the combats for Shadow Strategy cards are going to be pretty good. I think it's, yeah, not expecting any ones, but Great Host, it's a fantastic effect. The only so yeah, let me tell you what it is first. If you have double the opponent's health or more, they take an extra hit. This is really good at finishing off an army. Its big downside is it doesn't, if it's a big stronghold, like a tough cookie to crack, you typically want to rely on strategy cards to help you crack that cookie. You don't crack cookies. You get the point. But Great Host does not do that. Great Host is a finisher. In particular, it's really great against companions. It counters Heroic Death in a way. You know, Aragorn with 1 regular Minas Tirith, and he plays Heroic Death, yeah, you'd have to do 4 hits to kill him. But if you played Great Host, you don't even roll. Assuming, like, he'll still roll, but assuming you still have double their units by the end, you're just going to kill Aragorn and the guy. Yeah. It's an extremely strong card for those scenarios. So I think I'd give Great Host a 4 because, again, it would be a 5, but it is kind of limited in its use. Does not help against really strong things. Flexibility wise, I think this is an easy 5. It never hurts to reinforce Orthanc. I guess the only exception is if you've already conquered Rohan completely. You still probably want the Dunlendings. They can help Rivendell, Lorien, in the northwest. But the 2 elites in Orthanc don't do much, but I mean, it's not like you're losing a lot. You're still getting 2 dice of mustering done with 1 die for units that can easily get involved, especially with Rage of the Dunlendings. Great Host is just really great to play. It has no really requirement to play. You can always cycle it, and it's just a consistent. It's a card you choose to use, right? It's not like an auto play, but it's very easy to use. So I think flexibility is a 5. So overall, 5, 5, 4. It'll be a 14, so it'll go straight to S. Next up is Stormcrow. Stormcrow doesn't see a lot of use. Yeah, it's actually quite strong, but it's really difficult to use, and it depends entirely on what your opponent is doing. So Stormcrow, if a companion or the Fellowship is in a nation, you play Stormcrow, and that nation goes up on the political track instead of down, and they have to kill a unit. It could be regular, elite, or leader. Uh, that last part doesn't really matter much, notably in Kings of Middle-earth coming out. Unless they eroded it, I'm pretty sure they actually upgraded the card to where you have to kill an actual regular or elite, which makes the card much better. Um, but then again, a lot of people, when typically you'll see this card played when the Fellowship's in Rivendell, because elves are an easy first muster. You play it in Rivendell, you take away that muster, and then they'll actually usually kill a regular in Grey Havens, because then they can downgrade with that regular, because elves have no regulars, basically. Um, and yeah, it's the standard shadow operation of I have double free people's dice. They spent a muster to get a nation down. I'm just gonna spend one of my die to make their dice not matter, and I get a little murder in there too. So that's always good for Shadow. A one-on-one trade is always good for Shadow in pretty much every aspect. So it's a good effect, but it requires they can't be at war, obviously. So if you draw it a little in the mid game, mid to late game, it doesn't really do much. Uh, it's typically just going to affect the elves. Sometimes you'll get Gondor. It really hurts in Gondor. That's where its main strength is. The elf one doesn't matter much, but Gondor, when you send Boromir and Strider down there, it really hurts for them to go up to the third step on the political track. And killing a unit in Gondor is a little more awkward. Yeah, you probably just kill the regular in Osgiliath, but hey, that's one less regular. So I think overall Stormcrow gets a 3 just because of its limited kind of use overall. It depends entirely on the Fellowship. They just get revealed right when the match starts, round 1. That's great for you, but you can't play it. And unless they separate anybody, you'll never be able to play it. So I think it gets a 3. It's a good effect, but it's not always consistent. Great Host is a 4, as we discussed. Flexibility-wise, yeah, same concept. Yeah, it's pretty rough, flexibility-wise. Yeah, it's such a specific requirement that is basically out of. I mean, it's technically in your control. It depends how much you're putting eyes in the pool, but you never know what you'll roll in the hunt, or if you'll even draw a reveal. So, honestly, I think flexibility is a 2. Great Host is great, but you typically see this card played for Great Host just because of how difficult the top effect is to use, despite how good it is. Yeah. So that'll add up to a 9. So Stormcrow goes into the C tier. Many Kings to the Service of Mordor. Fantastic. Fantastic recruitment card, because mostly it doesn't require them to be at war. I believe it's the only it's this and what is it? Drawing a complete blank. Orcs Multiplying again, where you don't actually need the nations to be at war, and that adds a lot of value. This is probably this, and we'll get to it, but Shadows on the Misty Mountains are the two that is another one too. Are like the 2 best cards that draw turn 1. All the ones that don't require anybody to be at war, fantastic. So it gets a lot of points for that, and it's extremely spread out. It's two regulars in any Southron Easterling settlements. 9 out of 10 times you put 4 up in the east, and you put 2 down in the south, which makes it so you don't actually have to go to Umbar if you wanted to just attack Gondor. If you wanted Corsairs, you get an extra 3 in Nirharad, and that's actually nice because those 3 can march up, reinforce Pelargir once you have it, keep it kind of safe from any retakes. It's just overall great effect. 5, easy 5. Great Host is a 4, and flexibility, I think that's a easy 5. Yeah, you can play it at any point, even if you already got the Easterling army moving and merged. You know, you can still put 2 in. Yeah, I don't remember which one it is. The one you can recruit at that's a little higher up, and then you can put 2 down south, and you've got 4 extra reinforcements in the south. It's really good. So it's got use throughout the entire game. And Great Host, you can use it whenever. So that comes out to a 14 up to S. Half Orcs and Goblin Men. So these are one of the forward mustering is what these are called. So this lets you recruit a Isengard elite anywhere that a Shadow Army exists at. This is... I'm trying to think if it's the best one. Probably not. Yeah, I mean, even if it's not, I think it is the best one, just because it's simpler. It doesn't have as many restrictions. So the main benefit of Half Orcs is 2 things. One, you get an extra leadership, which is very nice. 2, it activates Devilry of Orthanc. It activates the Fighting Uruk-hai. Yeah, it activates those things. So it's just an extremely flexible card. This dude can go anywhere, and it activates all those cards wherever he goes. It's very great to play in the Northeast or in Gondor because those cards are typically completely unplayable in those places. I guess one downside is it turns on Spirit of Mordor, but I don't think that's enough of a downside to really discredit it. I do think this is a 5 for sure, and notably doesn't come up the most, but when it's Free People military time, all the forward mustering cards are fantastic for defense because you just throw them right on in there. Okay, so the combat, we come to kill. Right, so I said earlier all the combats for Shadow Strategy are fantastic. I think we come to kill is the exception. It's a decent effect, but it is easily the most limited. Yeah. It's the most limited, and its effect it's good because it's not using your dice. It's like an additional roll. So what it does is at the end of a fight, you roll a die for every elite you have in your army, and you hit on 5-ups. So it's like a bonus Devilry of Orthanc, Desperate Battle that you get to roll after the fight. So it's nice that it's not using, you still get your 10 die, usually, and then you do it, but it's also bad because depending on how the hits go, you might not get as much value as you think you will. The main use you typically see with We Come to Kill is Isengard, because they're elite heavy. You know, Saruman can just mount those puppies up and get them rocking with 5-6 elites coming at Helm's Deep. Funny enough, Helm's Deep typically doesn't put up the biggest fight, so what the one place this card is really good at, usually you don't need it, but you know, that's conjecture, I suppose. But I don't find it performs very well because of how limited it is, and we're still ranking I'll save my next point for the flexibility. But yeah, I think the effect itself, despite being additional die, is just too limited. You have to take casualties weird, and it might end up biting you in the butt. You might lower your combat strength just to get the full effect of this and then still whiff, because it's still 5-ups. It's still not good. You only expected 1 hit on 5 dice. So I give this a 2. Not a fan. Flexibility-wise, this is where... See, what I don't like about We Come to Kill is that the top effect is so good that I hate playing when We Come to Kill. That is personal opinion. These are all personal opinion, of course, but still, in terms of flexibility, I think flexibility-wise it would be a 5, because We Come to Kill is easy to play. Like, even if you have 1 elite, I mean, you're still doing something. Half Orcs is obviously easy to play. All you need is Isengard at war. It is a flexible card, even if the combat might not help much. It has that potential too. I mean, extra dice don't hurt, especially if there's just 1 guy left. Notably too, I didn't bring this up, it does actually counter Gandalf decently well, but that is such a one-off situation that I don't know how much that impacts the ranking. So I would like to give flexibility a 5, but I'm going to give it a 4 because, again, most people would prefer to play the top effect. It really feels bad to play We Come to Kill usually if you don't have like 3 elites at least. So I think it goes down a little bit because of that. So it comes out to an 11. So it goes up to B. Hill Trolls, another forward mustering card. This one is you Turn 2 orcs into trolls or Sauron elites. This is nice because it really helps. Yeah, it really helps multiple things. It helps you press sieges if you just put both of those orcs in the same army, or upgrade 2 orcs in the same army. You just get 2 extra presses in a fight. When Free People Military is happening, it gives you 2 health. Technically, it's not giving you... The big downside to this is it's not giving you an extra die. Your combat strength does not go up. So it's more preferable for it to be used on the offense than defense, when you already have an army that's 5 already. It just more presses then. But the best thing about Hill Trolls that I love about it is you can do any orcs. It actually took me a while to figure this out, and I recommend you use this to your advantage, where you can turn an orc in Moria into a troll, and then you can turn an orc into all the way in Minas Morgul into a troll. And that's just a really nice way to buff 2 armies you're going to use and just make them more formidable. Very flexible, its effect. You can use it in multiple ways. So I think I'll give it a 5 just because of that. We Come to Kill. Also the downside of it's only Sauron units, but it's not much of a downside because Sauron units are freaking everywhere. The only place they might not be involved is Rohan, but even then they can be in there. I mean, the Northwest, Sauron will almost never be involved in, but how often is the Northwest attacked? Not often at all. So not much of a downside. Though it does feel bad if you have it and you just the big siege in Erebor or something, all your Dol Guldur units are dead. But yeah, We Come to Kills. So I give Hill Trolls a 5. We Come to Kills a 2 still. The flexibility. So I think dock the flexibility for it being Sauron only. I don't think that impacts the effect itself, but I think for flexibility wise, it is possible. Notably in Erebor and Rohan, that you just don't have any Sauron units, and Dol Amroth too. That's typically a Southron fight. So it's going to get docked significantly for that. It's not nearly as flexible as Half Orcs was. I think I'd dock it 2 for that. Yeah, which would put it to a 3, and then I think it'll also get docked because it really can't help you when you're being attacked. I mean, it does. It gives you 2 extra health, but you're not getting an extra combat die. So it's flawed in terms of flexibility, in terms of defending yourself. So I think the flexibility does go down to a 2 with all those things combined. It is a slightly limited card in specific areas, but Dol Amroth and Erebor are very common targets, so it can be significant. So Hill Trolls will come out to a 9, which will also put it right there in C. Right there with Stormcrow, so slightly below average. Next up, we have Aloghai, the final forward mustering card. Half Orcs was a 5. Hill Trolls was a 5. I think Aloghai's a 4. It doesn't give you a gimmick like the other 2 do. Hill Trolls gives you that gimmick of a bonus 2 presses. Half Orcs gives you that leadership and turns on combat cards and fighting Uruk-hai. Aloghai doesn't give you anything. It's just an elite. It's straight and to the point. So I think it's a little worse. So it's a 4. We Come to Kill is a 2. The flexibility is a 4, which I think I gave Half Orcs. So it comes out to a 10. So it's up there with Half Orcs. Again, the Hill Trolls lost a lot of flexibility just for being restrained to Sauron units. Aloghai can be played in any army. It can be played in Dol Amroth, Erebor, anywhere. So it gets flexibility points for that. All right, get into the strifes. Horde from the East. So Horde from the East is you recruit 5 Southron Easterling units in an eastern region. So it's not a bad effect. Notably, it's worse than all of the other recruitment cards because you're getting 1 less. Typically, recruitment cards are 6. You're getting only 5, but all those other recruitment cards, they're in kind of different areas. So these guys just all plop down the same spot. Almost anytime you play this, it's being played up in the east, above, I don't know why I'm blanking on the eastern region names, right above Mordor. It's going to be played right below Iron Hills. Completely blanking on what those places are called. East Rune. There it is. Or that might be North Rune. I don't know. It is a little goofy up there. But yeah, it's a great effect. The effect itself cannot be understated. It does require them to be at war, which hurts it a little because they're typically the last to be at war. So, the card can be a little awkward when you get it early, but the effect is good. So I'd give the effect a 4, I think. Mainly because you can only use it in one place. Yeah, the rare instance of free people doing military and taking cities, which almost never happens anymore. Not in more competitive games. People can counter that very easily. You could technically defend Near Harad, Far Harad, whichever one it is, the city. I think it's Far Harad. But no, you're basically restrained to playing in one area. But, even though it's restrained in that one area, it definitely takes free people by surprise when half of an army just show up in right there. It really is a horde from the east. I'll give it a 4. Then we get to Deadly Strife. So this is +2 on your combat and leader. It's a 5. Yeah, this wins you games. It always will win you games. It's ridiculous. All your dice you're rolling 10 dice that are all coin flips for hitting. So no matter how tough a siege is, Deadly Strife will take them out. The downside, free people also get it. So this isn't much of a downside because you as the shadow run the show, right? You're the one choosing to attack. You know who you're attacking, what you're attacking. As long as you hold the card where you know you won't kill yourself, it's not much of a downside, really. But always, when you play it, expect every free people unit to hit you. Always keep that, just assume that. So if it's 4 guys, you're going to take 4 hits. If you want to be even more cheekier and paranoid, pretend like they always have no quarter, which gives them a bonus hit if they get 1. So just assume you're always going to take all their dice +1. Yeah, it's extremely good card. It counters companions. It counters Gandalf. I don't care how tough Aragorn, Boromir, Legolas, Gimli, the boys are in Minas Tirith with all their heroic deaths and fancy crap. If they only have 5 guys in there, Deadly Strife will likely just kill them if they don't play a card to counter it. Yeah, it's 5. Flexibility-wise, I think Horde from the East does lose. Like I said, I didn't dock the ability itself too much for the Southrons and Eastlings having to be at war, because it's not really a hard thing to get. Right? I don't think that impacts the ability itself, but flexibility-wise, it does bring it down a bit because, again, they are the last to get the war. So if you draw the card early, like I said before, it might just sit in your hand a lot, and I think that detracts the flexibility part of it. Also, if if Dew is done, which you're in good shape if you're at that point, it's just not a very flexible card because you're going to use it for Deadly Strife. We all know Deadly Strife's the best combat card in the game, but still, we're accounting for flexibility of both effects, and the top it can be useless. It's basically just an attack on one stronghold. So, depending on how the game is, that might not be helpful to you. So, I think I'll give flexibility a 3 overall. I think that's I think that's fair. Yeah, so I gave it a 4, so that'd make it a 12. So Horde from the East gets up to an A. Return the Valinor. I'm going to try to recount what this card does. I might get it wrong. I believe it's when you have a Elven stronghold conquered, you play the card, and every Elven stronghold that is unconquered, you get to roll a dice for every unit there, and you hit on 6s. So you conquer Woodland Realm, you play this card, say all the other strongholds have their base units. That means you roll 2 dice in Rivendell, get a hit on a 6, 3 dice in Lorien, 2 dice in Grey Havens, and you only hit on 6s. So it sucks. It's bad. It's awful. It's a joke. It's a 1, not even close. Yeah, I will take this opportunity to tell a funny story where I think it was my second game ever. And I know this because Strider was in Bree. That's how early this game was. uh, Building up a Northern Army. And yeah, I left one elf regular in Rivendell because Rivendell combined with that Northern Army and was marching to Orthanc. And my opponent played Monsters Roused. Put an elf, or not an elf, I hope it's not an elf, a troll in Troll Shaws, and then they played Return the Valinor, and they killed that elf regular. And I didn't have any more to muster, so as the elves and the men of Bree were trying to reconquer Helm's Deep with a giant army, this stupid troll walks into Rivendell because of Return to Valinor. Yeah, there was one dice to hit a 6 on, and they pulled it off. So it's a funny story. So I remember that happened to me, and I was like, "Oh, that card's bullshit. That's not fair." Yeah, I was wrong. It's terrible. I mean, it was one dice to roll a 6 on, and Monsters Roused was there. So the moons aligned for that one. Because even if it was a base Rivendell with the 2 elites in it, even if you roll 2 6s, they only take 2 hits. It doesn't die. Yeah, it's very bad. It's a 1. Deadly Strife is a 5. Flexibility, it's a 1. You're never playing the top effect. Technically, it's easy to play because all you need is an Elven Stronghold. You're going to take one eventually, likely. But it's so bad that you'd be insane to do so. So it goes out to a 7. So it actually goes in D. Despite the Deadly Strife, despite you always being happy when you pull this card, in terms of overall card ranking, it's a D. It is very below average. Corsairs of Umbar. Let's do the opposite of that. So Corsairs of Umbar is I'm going to teleport my Umbar army anywhere in between Dol Amroth and Pelargir. It's insanely good. It will win you any sprint military race game. It basically is the required card to consistently win sprint games. Sprint games are mostly gambling, and this card basically just lifts you up. It says, here you go, here's 2 points, you're welcome. 3, because it's pretty easy to take Pelargir right after. Yeah, it's an insanely good card. It's you're cycling the strategy deck to get to it. That's how good it is. So it's a 5. Deadly Strife is a 5. And then the flexibility for Corsairs is, again, the requirement is Southrons and Easterlings are at war, and the army's already pre-made for you. It's a maximum 12 health, 2 elite army that you can, takes 2 army moves, or no, 2, it takes 1 technically full army action, so 2 half army moves to be able to play this card efficiently. It has the downside, it's not even a downside, so it can be telegraphed, but almost every game Shadow should be moving that army to Umbar because they want those extra 2 regulars anyway. If you're going to march all the way to Dol Amroth on foot and you don't have those 2 regulars, good luck taking out that 2 elite stronghold that might have Cyrodiils afterwards. It's not happening. So Umbar is a very consistent place to go. The only way to counter this card is just with extreme dice luck by free people or card luck. Yeah, they need to hope they roll a dice to get Gondor to war. Ignore all the other nations, basically, because this is taking a total of, if you leave Minas Tirith alone, it takes a total of 4 dice, muster dice, just to get Dol Amroth to put up a defense. It's mostly cards that they rely on to stop this nonsense. Very unfair card, very broken. It's a full 15, straight to S tier. If I didn't say it, yeah, the flexibility is a 5 because it's super easy to play. It takes 2 half army moves to be able to play it, and obviously getting them to war, but yeah, nothing they can really do about it. Next up, Monsters Roused. So Monsters Roused is you recruit an elite and troll shards and a bunch of regulars in the very northwest, where it's chilly. North Etten Moors, Weather Hills, Angmar, I believe. Yeah, it's not great. The troll is good, but yeah, you'd have to spend a dice and a half to congregate that army, and it's not like it's a big one. and you're not even getting what, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, you're only getting 5 units. So you're getting 5 units. You're getting less than all the other ones. They're extremely spread out. Like, there's very little upside to this. I guess they're trying to. I guess the balance is one of them's an elite, but the best use this card gives you is it turns on Shadow's Gather, a better card. it lets a much better card be sneaky for a Rivendell attack. And also, the troll can help you with like a Rage of the Dunlending's army marching to Rivendell, but you're paying a Palantir for a troll. It's not great. I think it's a 1. It never gets played. The only time it gets played is if Palantir overthinks up and they just want to cycle or something like that. Now, its combat, on the other hand, Desperate Battle, is a +1 on combat and +1 on leader, and it applies to the free people as well. Fantastic, fantastic card. Now, while it is good, if Deadly Strafe is a 5, Desperate Battle is a 4, because while good, you're still hitting on 5s. Like, you're still only expected like almost 2 hits. It's not like groundbreaking. And you're giving free people coin flips on all of their combat. So you're not really getting many hits. Unlike Deadly Strife that's giving you coin flips, you're very expected to get 4, maybe even 5 hits. Desperate Battle, you're still only expected 2 tops. While free people's doing the whole coin flip thing, so if they have a lot of guys, they could be hitting you with 4 hits. So it's got a bit more of a risk behind it. It really is a Desperate Battle. So it lives up to its name. So I think I'll give it a 4. The flexibility, yeah, obviously the card effect itself it's easy to play, but it can be used, right? Like, playing it is not the worst idea in the world. Those units can help. You don't need to get the guy in Angmar, obviously, into the army. You build up a force in Isengard, you move them up 1 while getting maybe an orc into Trollshaws, one of the orcs you mustered, walk that Isengard army into Trollshaws, walk another orc into the Trollshaws. So, the Angmar guy can just hang out. So it's a 2. I mean, you can play it. I've seen it win games. Like, it's beaten me. Again, it takes usually other cards to do that, but it has value, flexibility-wise. It's not a terrible idea to play it. It's not god-awful. It's not like Return the Valinor. So, yeah, I'll give flexibility a 2, even if the effect itself is a 1, just by what it accomplishes by itself. Yeah, I think that's fair. So it comes out to a 7. So it goes to D. Musterings of Long Planned War. So if the requirement for this is crap, it's if Sauron... It's either if all nations are at war or if Sauron and Southrons and Easterlings are at war. I mean, Isengard's always at war anyway, so it doesn't really make a difference. But I know that Southrons and Eastlings need to be at war, which is the hard part. This recruits 5 Southrons and Easterlings in Gorgoroth, and then 5 orcs in Nirn. I might have those numbers wrong. It doesn't really get played for that. There's very limited productive use for this, because Mordor's already humongous. If your entire Mordor got wiped out, something went horribly wrong. Something was misplayed. So the best use this ever has is Defends from Free People Mordor military. But, you have a card in your deck that helps protect Mordor that's already got like 22 health in it at the start of the game, something like that. I don't know how valuable that is to keep in your hand. I don't think it's good at all. Doesn't really help war efforts. They're just so far away from any action. It's awkward. It does muster a lot of guys, but sometimes it doesn't come up often. But, if you left Nirn the way it starts and you put 5 more orcs in there, you got freaking 7 orcs. Like, that's a significant amount of orcs that are just out of the game. And that sometimes you run out of orcs. It can happen. Depends if Free People's playing a long game. So yeah, I'll give it a 1. It's limited its use is very limited. You'd much rather have a forward mustering card to just protect a stronghold than get 5 units in really crappy spots. Desperate Battle. Yep, it's a 4 still. And then Flexibility. Yeah, it's just a 1. At no point do you draw this card and think, oh boy, which one do I play? No, it's Desperate Battle. 9 out of 10. 9 out of 10 is generous. It's higher than that. So it's a 1. So it comes out to a 6. So it just escapes. It just escapes the F tier. Basically completely saved by Desperate Battle. Entirely saved by Desperate Battle. It's a good combat effect. And then we have Pits of Mordor. So Pits of Mordor is recruit 2 Sauron units in any 3 strongholds. They have to be 2 in each. Sauron has to be at war, which is not a big requirement. Notably, this card is worse in, similar to, same thing with the Logai and Hill Trolls, they're worse in Lords because Sauron typically isn't at war for a while. So Pits is great to draw early because you have multiple Sauron strongholds you're moving out from. Moria, Dol Guldur are the easy targets. Mordor usually doesn't need more, so maybe you do Gundabad. Having the option to get Gundabad and actually do something, that's a nice, good payoff. Have 3 orcs, kind of roam a little. Great card. Helps against Free People military. You just throw 2 orcs and whatever they're attacking, and if, remember, they need 2 strongholds, 4 points to win, so if they're attacking Mordor, again, Mordor is very difficult to take because of not only the huge armies there, but a lot of cards specifically help it. But it makes sense because it's 3 strongholds that are all within 2 regions of each other. So, if Free People gets in there, it pays off. It's hard to walk into Mordor, but once you're in, it's cozy. So, Pits, I will give a 4. Only because of the stronghold restriction thing. This last 2 orcs, again, they typically don't have a great place to go, but could be worse. The combat, Desperate Battle, still 4. Flexibility, I think this is a 5. Again, Sauron's going to war quick and easy. We're talking base game here. Sauron should be at war turn 2, if not turn 1. So Pits is very easy to play. Desperate Battle is very great to play. It's right up there with a 5 for sure. So Pits comes out to a 14, or 13, sorry. Let me redo my math. I think I messed up one in the other video, so I'll make sure I do my math right. God, it's a 13. So Pits goes to A. I think that sounds about right. It's a great card. Orcs multiplying again. So notably, you don't need Sauron at war to play this. You get 3 orcs in Dol Guldur, 3 orcs in Gundabad. Fantastic card. It helps. If you draw it turn 1, it's one of the best cards to draw turn 1 because Dol Guldur suddenly becomes the same size as the Barad-dûr army joining a stronghold. So instead of having to march Barad-dûr all the way up to Woodland Realm, now Dol Guldur can do it just because you drew this card. And Gundabad can help. Gundabad now has 5 units in it. So if those 4 orcs are definitely going to take Karok and can easily reinforce the Woodland Dew Siege up there. Very nice card. Easy 5 for me. Onslaught. So Onslaught's pure desperation. I don't know why. My brain just, when I hear Onslaught, I just think of a World War Z. And I like to imagine just all the Nazgul just floating there, pointing, and just watching the orcs just slam their bodies against the stronghold with no rhyme or reason. So Onslaught is you kill your own people. For every one you kill, up to a maximum of 4, you roll a die and you hit on 4 up. So you flip coins. Extremely strong effect. If it entirely depends on the siege. It's very out of your control. Obviously, you do pick your targets, but realistically, do you really? You work with what the dice gives you, what cards you draw, stuff like that. So, yeah, it's great for when you just really need that final hit. So the most useful times you'll use this is it counters companions. Again, it's Gandalf, you don't care about his shining ability, canceling leadership, when you can just roll 4 coin flips at the end of the fight. But the main use it has is when a siege has actually gone wrong. A lot of people think you use this when a siege is going well. No, you use it when it's going wrong. So suddenly, you've pressed a bunch of times. They have 2 health. You have 5 regulars left. You press. You play Onslaught. Maybe they get a hit. Unlucky on 3 dice if they have a leader. Hopefully you get 1. But if not, you still got 4 guys. You put 3 of them into Onslaught. You roll 3 coin flips. If you get 2, you get the Stronghold. It is pure gambling, but it will win you games, and you need to take risks. Especially if they got cards, they might reinforce. Plenty of things. So Onslaught's strong, but it can backfire. It can also make you lose games. So, because even if you kill them all, if you don't got anybody left, you're not getting the Stronghold. So I think it hits in the middle for 3 because it is limited. You can't just draw it and be like, well, I need to use that. I need to wait for a very specific moment to use it. The best, most consistent use of it is Minas Tirith, because if you brought the Blackgate army and the Minas Morgul army fully consolidated Mordor, you're attacking with an 11 health army and you got an 8 health army right behind you. You can just throw bodies then. But I give it a 3. So all in all, it comes out to a 12, which brings it to A. I think that's perfect. Yep, it's a great card. Fighting Uruk-hai. So Fighting Uruk-hai is it's like Grand. You get 3 free rounds of combat, but you need a Isengard unit to start it, notably. So that Isengard unit can completely eat shit when the fight starts, but the card still goes through full effect. The Uruk-hai, while dead, I guess, are still fighting. I don't know. Their sacrifice inspired the rest of the forces. So, a great effect. It can technically be in the flexible argument, but I don't think so, because it's the requirement to play the card. I don't think that really counts for ignoring it in this first category. Having to have an Isengard unit sucks. It's not the least likely, but again, there's areas they're in are very limited naturally. You can play, as we discussed before, half orcs and goblin men, get them anywhere, but you have 24 cards in your deck. Having to rely on drawing that one just to play this one is not great. The effect is so strong, though, that it's a 5, but I think its requirement is a little more niche than Grand, so it comes down to a 4. Grand I gave a 5 because the Witch King is almost always fighting in the stronghold you want. You're not always going to have an Isengard unit, and there's really no way to get one there, by choice. It's just, you need a card, or it needs to be a stronghold near Isengard. Honestly, if you could play this card with a muster die, I feel like it would be a 5. Like that, it's always kind of awkward. This card just seems to get played with an army a lot because you only have a 1 and 6 to roll a Palantir. So sometimes you end up just playing it with an army, and that's kind of the opposite of what Grand is good for. Because Fighting Uruk-hai, you want to play it in the one army you have an Isengard guy in. Like Grand, you can kind of hold on to. This one, not so much. When that army's there, you end up almost always playing this with an army, which hurts it too. So yeah, I think it's a 4. I think that's fair. Just because the effect is still really good. Onslaught, what did I give it? I'm drawing a blank. I think I gave it a 3, didn't I? I think I said 3, but I meant 4. I don't remember. Yeah, I think I meant 4. Sorry if I said 3 earlier. Onslaught, I think, is a 4. Because it's just it's a very good effect. Like, you're likely to get just 2 hits. It is slightly limited, though, by its location. My fault if I said 3. I don't remember. But it is a 4 now. I've changed my mind. And flexibility-wise, that's where this card really suffers. When you draw this card, depending on board state, it just could be impossible to play the top effect. And you could put some effort in to make it playable, but that does not make it a flexible card at the end of the day. You're putting in a lot of work just to get this card, which it's a good effect, but it's not flexible. I'd give it a 2. It's not trash flexibility, but it can be awkward. A lot of the times, it ends up just getting played for Onslaught. So that comes out to a 10, so it goes straight to B. Shadows on the Misty Mountains. So you get 2 elites, Sauron elites, and a Nazgul in Moria or Mount Graham for some reason. Always Moria. Yeah, Shadows on the Misty Mountains, I think that's an easy 5. I don't even think we need to discuss that. You're getting 4 health. 4 health of units, 2 of them being elites, so they're the perfect addition to an army for just to decimate a stronghold. It's right in the middle of the board, staring down Rivendell, staring down Lorien. Yeah, drawing it early, basically, like, death sentences Lorien. Yeah, you get Dol Guldur, the 5-1 army in Dol Guldur, combined with a Shadows on the Misty Mountains army as a 7-3 army with an extra Nazgul, too. Yeah, this card recruits a Nazgul. I don't even know why. I'm assuming... I'm very into Middle-earth lore, but I'm drawing a blank on which Nazgul really likes Moria. I don't remember that. I know Camule is in Dol Guldur, so maybe he got confused. I don't know. But yeah, getting the Nazgul is so strong. Like, even without the Nazgul, it'd still be a 5. The Nazgul almost makes this a 6. It's so good. That Nazgul is going to be with you the rest of the game. If I had to pick a card I wanted turn 1, 100% I want Shadows on the Misty Mountains. Only because Orcs multiplying again gives you those Orcs in Gundabad, which isn't as useful. Yeah, getting these guys here, combining with Dol Guldur, take Lorien, probably be able to go to Rohan with at least a 5-1 army left over. Like, it's so good. Best card. Always happy to see this card. This card's won me so many games. Easy 5. Because it can even be good late game too. I've won games late game. Elven Force Pool's gone. Rivendell's a sitting duck. I just don't have an army there. Now I do. Okay, so the combat 4 Onslaught. Flexibility, I think I'm gonna give this a 4 because while the effect is fantastic, if typically the elves are an early target, not always, they're an early target, but at the end of the day, Shadows on the Misty Mountains really only impacts 2 strongholds consistently. It's Rivendell and Lorien. Sometimes they're not enough to be an army on their own. Usually you only get 1, but the flexibility can be a little awkward. You took Lorien, the Elven Force Pool is not empty. You draw Shadows, it's like, well, I'm happy I have it, but I can't really justify playing it right now because there's 3 elves in the Force Pool. I'm not really going to get Rivendell without making it obvious. So it can be a little tricky, but it's still good. Yeah, so I'll give it a 4. So all in all, that comes out to a 13. Yep, so it goes up to A. Makes sense to me. Okay, Denethor's Folly. Denethor's Folly gets a lot of hate. I think it's better than people give it credit for. I think a lot of people would give it a 1. So you play it, you kill a leader in Minas Tirith, but the more important thing is they can't play cards. You can discard it with a Will of the West, or if Aragorn or Gandalf is in the stronghold, you can discard it with any die. Yeah, this is actually... The reason I think it's underrated is because it's a card that when you're Shadow, it feels like it doesn't do much, but when you're Free People, it actually feels like it does a lot. Minas Tirith is a rough stronghold to lose. And notably, when you have 6 cards as Free People in a companion like Boromir in there, because Aragorn ran away, it really, really, really sucks when this card gets played. Yeah, you got like Daring Defiance, Brave Stand, Daylight, and then they plop this down. I think you can get rid of it with a ring. I don't remember. You almost never really get rid of it. The only time I've gotten rid of it is if I'm just playing one of those long games with Aragorn and Gandalf, and I just throw one of them in there. It's like, okay, yeah, I got 6 dice. I can kill one to get rid of it. Why not? But depends on the cards too. If you don't have good cards, then sure. And that's a downside, I think, also to Denethor. I think the effect itself puts it up to a 3. But the fact it's only on a single stronghold in the game brings it down. It combined with, if the free people just have bad cards, it does nothing. You wasted a die. I mean, technically you got rid of the leader, but meh. Yeah, so I think it's a 2. It hurts when it gets done to you as free people, but all in all, as an effect, it is pretty weak. Okay, so we are back to Devilry of Orthanc. We already discussed this in the Shadow character because it is a hybrid combat. It's on 1 character card and 2 strategies. In that video, I gave Devilry a 3 because while the effect is good and because it doesn't give free people a benefit, that is nice. Requiring an Isengard unit, again, same concept. It's a bit awkward. In the Northeast, where most of the fighting in the game happens, usually in base game, the odds of you having an Isengard person up there are only from 1 card of half-orcs. You're not walking Isengard up there, so it's limiting. So it comes out to 3, because the effect is good. And then flexibility, I think this is just a straight-up 1. Denethors can only be played in Minas Tirith. Devilry can only be played with Isengard. It's a very limited card. I don't know why they attached Devilry of all things to Denethors. You have an extremely limited event card. Why'd you give them such a limited combat card? That was just mean. And I think that also is a big contributor to why people don't like this card, and that makes sense. It's not a great card flexibility wise, even if both the effects are average at best. So overall, it was 2, 3, 1, so it comes out to a 6. So it does just narrowly escape the F tier. Also, I mean, I think most people would probably give the effect a 1 instead of me giving it a 2, which would put it in F. But I don't know. I think that's disingenuous. I think it really can actually just win you a game if you play it at the correct time. One thing, funny use of it, took a while for this to happen to me, is say they muster a relief force, Rohan, Pelargir, Lossarnach. They can't play cards because the card says you cannot play cards in Minas Tirith. And technically the defending army is where the fight is happening. So if you attack into Minas Tirith from an adjacent region, you're fighting in Minas Tirith. Pelennor Fields does not give a shit about your wording. It says, I'm Minas Tirith now, and you can't play cards in the fields. So that actually hurts, too. It's inconvenient. So I will play devil's advocate and bump it up to that D that it probably doesn't deserve. But next up is Threats and Promises. Right. Threats and Promises is so bad, almost everybody doesn't actually understand it. So Threats and Promises is you play it, they can't muster a passive nation down the political track. If it stopped active nations, it'd be so good. It'd be broken. That's why it doesn't do that, because that just turns off dice for free people. But they already got enough problems. They don't need that crap. But yeah, and then this card just goes away if you ever advance a nation from an attack, or if a companion uses their little poke their leaders with a stick button event thing they have going on, where Legolas can tell the elves to go to war with any die. You don't see that very often. The more expansions you play, the more common that is, but hey, we're talking base game. Very likely it's going to go away because Shadow attacks somebody. Notably, and also, the Witch King activates all the nations. In base game, he comes quick. Other expansions, he doesn't, so another reason. But notably, say the elves are at war and you play this card and you attack the elves, it doesn't go away. You have to actually advance a nation with an attack. But again, you get the Witch King turn 2, hopefully turn 3. They all become active. the whole passive thing is irrelevant. That was just a straight up game design flaw when they created the game. The Witch King blew the developers completely by surprise. They thought Witch King would be coming out turn 6, 7, when in reality, the action dies too strong. So he comes out earlier. So threats does nothing. It's a 1. Devilry is a 3, and the flexibility is a 1, because not only would, if you wanted this to maybe have an effect, you'd probably have to play it turn 1. Not only does that effect basically do nothing, once you're past turn 2, turn 3, the top effect actually does nothing. So it's a 1. So this does equal up to a 5 and is our first F tier card. Okay, Rage of the Dunlendings. So that's Isengard's at war. You recruit 2 North or Isengard regulars adjacent to the Dunland regions, and then you bring 4 units max from the Dunland regions to that region. Notably, if you're a new player, please realize that North Dunland is adjacent to Moria. Some people just throw them in Holland and then walk them into Moria. That hurts to see. Yeah, Moria is adjacent. So this is deceptively a fantastic recruitment card for like a Lorien or Rivendell attack. Most people use it for Rivendell or the Shire. Sometimes Grey Havens. Depends on what they mustered in Dunland. Typically, it's only 4 Isengard regulars because it just takes 2 musters with the voice. 1 if you haven't moved them yet. But yeah, it's just 6 Isengard regulars just teleporting. Again, mostly used to get the Shire to get all 4 cities, as that is a consistent tactic that works very well for Shadow. If all the strongholds are buff, just get all the 4 cities. Very easy to hold. Yeah, you're only coming at the Shire with 6 regulars, but who's going to take it back? It's not going to be that arid Lewin dwarf, I promise. So, it's a fantastic card. Very, very consistent. It takes very minor setup. 1 voice muster. That's it. If you play New Powers Rising, you're already ready. Already ready. So, give it a 5, for sure. And then, so the combat, new combat. So Relentless Assault. Relentless Assault, you take 2 hits on your army, and then you get a +1 per hit. So you can take a maximum of 2. So you can give your combat, notably it's only your combat, a +2 if you kill 2 of your own guys, so you get coin flips on your combat. Relentless Assault is just like Onslaught. It is risky. The best thing about it is it's just like Onslaught. I didn't bring this up with Onslaught, but they are optional. You can play the card, see how the fight goes, and then do it. Well, I guess with Relentless, you kind of see, it's not that you see how the fight goes, you see what they play. So if Free People plays Advantageous Position or Daylight, sometimes Shield Wall, maybe it might impact your decision, but they play any of those, you can just say, okay, I'm not going to do it. Which, yeah, you played a card and it did nothing, which it sucks. That's a big downside, but at least you have that decision. So the benefit Onslaught has over Relentless, the reason Onslaught was a 4, and why I'm probably thinking of giving Relentless a 3, is because Onslaught lets you see how the fight goes, and then puts all that information in your hand and says, do you want to risk it? You're taking double the hits to do Onslaught to get the same result, slightly worse, because you should be rolling 5 dice with Relentless. But again, you have to commit to Relentless before the fight, so yeah, you don't have as much information. Relentless can backfire. For some reason, I seem to only always roll 2 hits with Relentless. I don't know why, but again, it's a numbers game. If you have reinforcements, these are the best cards to have, but I think I'm comfortable giving it a 3. It's not always helpful, but it can be consistently helpful just due to how the Shadow armies operate. And again, if they play a card to counter it, you just don't use it. Flexibility wise, I think I'd give this a 4, because while Rage of the Deadlendings does have a lot of kind of variety, you can go to Gap Rohan, you can go to drawing a blank on the region that leads to the Shire, the big one. You can go to Holland, you can go to Moria. It's still only one nation. And it's very telegraphed. But, that's not really a flexibility issue. But, again, you're limited to where you're going with that army. And Relentless itself can vary. So you can always play it the cycle, but it can vary on where it's actually usable. Unlike Onslaught, you cannot use Relentless when you only have 5 regulars. It's not an option. So it's got a little bit more of a edge case on when it can be used. So I'm comfortable giving it a 4. Yeah. So that comes out to a 12. So Rage of the Dunlendings is an A. King is Revealed. King is Revealed not good. I don't think so. Yeah. The requirement is niche. It's only when Aragorn's in play. Notably, this also got buffed, I believe, in Kings, where now it's if any sovereigns in play, so it's a bit more consistent. But similar to musterings of a long play in war, they kind of come in an awkward place. They come in Minas Morgul, not nearly as awkward. Minas Morgul is more accessible to get to Gondor. It's a whole 1 region closer than the Gorgoroth and 2 regions closer than Nirn. So those are two dice that got saved, or 2 movements, I should say, got saved. And you get a Nazgul. I'll take a Nazgul any day. It's 5 orcs and a Nazgul. I'll take that any day over 10 units in the middle of Mordor. The Nazgul's nice, but yeah, if you draw this card when they get Aragorn turn 1, great. But usually Mordor has already marched out turn 2, if not turn 1. So it's not the most. So yeah, the times you can use it are limited, and the effect itself isn't exactly amazing. So I think I give it a 1. Yeah, the effect's not great. It's Relentless Assault, so I'll give it a 3. And then Flexibility, it's a 1. Same concept. Aragorn has to be in play to play it. Aragorn's not often in play, so this card, for the majority of games, the top effect cannot be used. It's a 1, not even close. So all in all, it's a 5. Goes straight to F. Day Without Dawn. Yeah, so Day Without Dawn, all nations are at war. Shadow nations, you can just eat their wills. Everybody knows this card. So Day Without Dawn has the benefit of doing the majority of its work by not even being in your hand. It's just that good. Similar to Cruel Weather, or not Cruel Weather, Worn with Sorrow and Toil. I think this card is just ridiculously strong for its own good. Due to no fault of the free people. I think that's the problem with it. So Worn with Sorrow and Toil is not fair to the free people because they can't really counter it. There's no way to get rid of it in base game consistently. You can go to a stronghold, but that's not consistent. It slows you down and they can reveal you. So it's not something I can just choose to do. Day Without Dawn, similar. I can't decide to roll 3 wills. It just happens. So, okay, you rolled dice, and now they're gone. Sorry. You can slightly counter it by burning a ring to change one of them, but that sucks. Nobody wants to do that. This card's ridiculously strong. Easy 5. You don't even need it. You can honestly discard it right when you draw it. It does all the work for you. Combat is a 3. And then Flexibility, I think I will be giving this a 4. Because all nations have to be at war. That's not really the biggest downside. Mostly it's the fact that the odds of them rolling more than 2 is low. Obviously, if they're trying to get in the Mordor and they roll 2 wills, it's great to be able to take 1 because they're always going to play the first one first. But usually, aside from that edge case, getting rid of just 1 will, it's not the greatest thing in the world. I mean, it's good. He's good. But it's not like winning any awards. So, yeah, you end up holding on to it for a long time. I think the flexibility on this one's kind of weird. because it's actually, I think for that effect alone, I'd still give it a 5, but this card's weird. The flexibility is poor because if you play it as a combat, free people have their whole game changes. Now, whenever they roll a will, they actually have wild dice. They can do anything with them, and there's zero fear. They're going to use their characters to move the fellowship, and then those 3 wills they just rolled are going to be used for anything they want. So playing this as a combat is actually really bad. So, yeah. 12. Yeah, I think if I'm rating this on a 5, 3 with Relentless, and then a 4, yeah, that brings it to 12. I think I'm comfortable putting Day Without Dawn in A. Just as overall as a card, using the combat is actually bad. Just because of how strong the effect is. That's the only reason it's not an S. Maybe that's wrong. I think personally, whenever I see Shadow play this as a card, and I'm not like one step away from winning, I'm relieved. It's a great card to use to discard things, power too great and whatnot. So Return of the Witch King. So Return of the Witch King is Witch King flies to Angmar, recruit some dudes. I think it's 3 regulars, 1 elite, something dumb. Card sucks. Northwest is not. He's getting such a small army. It's so tiny. Like, you'd have to muster at least 2 more elites in there. Like, maybe if the card let you, you'd have to put the Witch King in Angmar. You get your recruits, and then you can move the rest of the Nazgul freely. I think it'd be slightly better and you'd see more use. But as it is now, where it's only him, he's the only one moving, it's not good. I love the theme of it. I think it's the coolest card, one of the coolest cards thematically. It's a shame it's so bad. I think it should be a much bigger army. And again, I'm pretty sure it's 5 health. It's 3 plus the troll. Now, I have seen it. I've done it myself, and I've seen it once in my 200 games of people playing this with monsters roused and having a decent army. Because you get that Orc and Angmar from monsters roused. Now you're at 4 regulars, 1 elite. You walk to Ettenmoors, 5 regulars. Walk to Troll Shoals. Now you're at a 5-2 army. That's enough to take Rivendell at base value. It's not winning any awards, but it's cool. If the Elven Forest pool's completely gone, you can go for Círdan in Grey Havens, but that's all. It's deceptively large amount of army moves to get there. It's not insane, but it's 3 to get there or something like that. Yeah, it's a 1. Swarm of Bats. Swarm of Bats cancels a free people card. That alone is insane, but a great thing about Swarm of Bats, why I love it so much, is that it gives you a +1 on your leader reroll if they don't play a card. So why they decided to make it that strong, God knows why. I don't know. But it's ridiculously strong. It's just a free they are terrible, and that's why strategy cards are just better than character cards. Because you just get the they are terrible effect without any sacrifice if they just decide not to play a card. Yeah, Swarm of Bats, fantastic. Can stop scouts. The only thing that stops scouts. So easy peasy 5, rating of 5. Yep, no thoughts there. Like I said, it's a win-win no matter what. Flexibility, yeah, it's a 1. At no point do you draw this card and think, oh, I can buff up Angmar. That's not happening. You're playing it for Swarm, so it's a 1. So comes out to a 7, so it's in the D. Completely carried by Swarm of Bats. Alright, home stretch here. The Shadow is moving. So this is when all nations are at war. You move 4 armies 1 space. Shadow is moving is great. But a bit too limited. Sometimes. But, it's usually you can find something to move. So I think it's a 5. Yeah, the restriction is kind of annoying, but again, it's a restriction that if you draw the card turn 1 sucks, but that's more of a flexibility thing. The effect itself is extremely good. Yeah, 4 free army moves. So yeah, you're getting 2 dice of movement for the cost of 1. Great. The combat, Swarm of Bats, it's a 5. Flexibility, yeah, this is where it's going to take a hit. Because, yeah, you do need All Nations at War. You draw this card turn 1. This card is not flexible. You'll probably be burning it for Swarm if you just get it early. It's just the way it is, because it could take a while to get all the nations at war. And again, you're moving 4 different armies, 1 space. While you should be able to find 4 armies, what are the odds of all 4 of them being useful moves that are going to actually contribute? Not the highest. Some games are like that, some aren't. So I think flexibility is average. It's a 3. So overall, comes out to a 13, goes straight to A. Shadows Gather. So this one lets you move an army 3 regions as long as it ends with another army. Stupidly strong. Not even close. I think this is the strongest strategy card in the game. Overall, I think it's the strongest effect, and I think it's just the strongest card too, which I'm sure my rating will prove. Yeah, Shadows Gather is just ridiculous. You reinforce a siege that you're about to lose. You attack something that's just completely out of the way because you just happen to have an orc there. You know, there's so much you can do with it. And free people can't really predict it. Sometimes it's predictable. Like if you just move an orc to Emerald Dale, obviously somebody's teleporting there. But even if it's predictable, what are they going to do about it? That's kind of a big thing with this card. It's like, oh, well, damn. 9 units are just going to appear before me. Whoopee. So, yeah, I give it a 5. Mumakil, it's if a Southrons and Easterlings elite is in the battle, you get a +1 on your combat. If you get more hits than your opponent, you get an extra hit. Notably, this does take into effect charges, sudden strikes, all that crap. So it's actually deceptively difficult to get that effect to go off unless you just get lucky. Great. It's a great card. Great combat. Yeah, I don't think there's any real flaws with this combat. Yeah, the requirement isn't insane just to get that kind of effect on it. Yeah, I think it's a 5. It's just a good combat. Flexibility. This is where it gets a little funky. Yeah, because with the flexibility, you do have to take more into account that you are required to have a Southron elite unit. Because of that requirement, you end up usually using the top effect. Not always. Mumakil does get played, but that top effect sees more use because of that. I'm assuming overall because of just the lack of flexibility with the combat. Again, it requires a certain nation, and it even requires a certain unit. So if you don't have an elite with the Southrons, like you just don't get to play it. So it's got slight flexibility issues, but not a lot. I think it's a 4. So overall, it comes out to 14, so it goes up to S. The S's were getting lonely up there. Shadow Lengthens is the same thing. You move 2 armies, 2 regions. Just as good. I think Shadows Gather is better, but it doesn't feel right to rate this one any lower just because Gathers is slightly better. Lengthens can be just as good. Takes a lot more setup, but it feels good to reinforce 2 different strongholds at the same time. Like, free people just feel like they can't do anything at that point. Very good. It's a 5. Mumakil's a 5. And flexibility. Yeah, I think it's the same flexibility. Same problem, really, 4. It takes a little more setup, but you have enough. Like, you roll so many dice. Like, you have enough to set it up. It's all about kind of your skill as the shadow player to be able to set it up. Not so much a flexibility issue. I think this card is giving you a lot of tools to use in both the effects. So, yep. I think it's a 4 again, so straight up to S rank. And there we go. There's our Shadow strategy card ranking. Hopefully I didn't do the math wrong this time on one of them. I think I put Warnosaur and Toil like 1 less. It was an A. I put it in B. Oh well, life goes on. Men are weak. Yeah, this looks pretty accurate. It is a little baffling to see Deadly Strife down at D, but it makes sense considering the rating system, because just how bad that card is if you don't use it for Deadly Strife. It basically doesn't exist. It's strictly a Deadly Strife. So it makes sense with this rating. Lots of A's, lots of S's, a lot more D's than I expected. Just shows you that a lot of the events on these cards are kind of bad. But you're not really drawing them for the events. Yes, a lot of them help, but you're still happy to draw those D's, even if the effect isn't the greatest 10 out of 10 combat. All those ones in D are held up entirely by their combat. Like, they'd all be an F if their combats weren't 5s and 4s. Yeah, with the exception of Devilry, all their combats are 4s and 5s in the D spot. So that's just how strong the combat effects for Shadow are. It basically kept a good chunk of the cards out of the F tier. Yeah, the F tier is just unfortunate. Yeah, you draw those 2 cards, you're justified to be angry. They suck. But, Relentless has that chance to be good, but it's not flexible. But that's my rating. Let me know what you guys think of it. So far, it looks pretty accurate to me. It doesn't have that weird, red tiles being at the bottom thing. But I guess, yeah, I'm pretty happy. I think it came out pretty accurate. Let me know if you guys think anything's different. Thoughts, concerns. I will see you guys in the next one when we tackle the Free People cards. Later.